In order to do a proper Mutant Saga, you have to be somewhat politically charged. The Marvel Studios in 2028 doesn't even have a chance of getting at least that political. I think they want Marvel Hogwarts. They don't want something that's on the streets of mutants being locked up by the Friends of Humanity. What they want is a wish fulfillment story of a kid who wakes up with a mutant power one day, and what if he gets whisked away to a magical school with other mutant kids and they learn how to use their powers because they can build that school at Disney, and that's what they want because they think it's more profitable. But that's not what X-Men is at the end of the day. Does this Disney drama with Jimmy Kimmel make it more or less likely that we'll get a properly politically charged Mutant Saga in Marvel Studios? Rumors. This is the Rumor Rundown, where the hosts of New Rockstars investigate the wildest rumors that nerds and newsmen can't make heads or tails of, applying our own backgrounds in journalism and Hollywood connections, and finally confirming whether those rumors are honest scoops or bullshit poops. We are Eric Voss and Jessica Clemens. Hey, Jess. Hi. What a huge week in Hollywood news it's been with all this Disney drama, not just the Jimmy Kimmel stuff and all the FCC stuff that I went into a video that a lot of people decided was a good chance to bounce and unsubscribe from New Rockstars after we made that. Yeah. Man, if something as middle of the road as that video got you to unsubscribe from New Rockstars, what does that say about the state of politics in America? My God. It was just basically a boring history lesson, and people were like, no, it's still too woke. God. Well, sayonara. I don't miss you guys. But here's what we're going to talk about today. How all this Disney drama, based off of what's being rumored by some Hollywood reporters, how that could affect the Mutant Saga that's coming up. How have you been reacting to all this Jimmy Kimmel news, Jess?
Taking it with stride, taking as much as I can.
Yeah.
We're in entertainment, so like, you know, censorship is never a great thing, especially in our line of work, period. It's heartbreaking, it's nerve-wracking, it's scary. I think there's just like a lot of things going on, period, that like I see. I'm very proud of everyone's like advocacy with what's going on with Jimmy Kimmel and entertainment. I'm still focused on ice up our city. And so I'm like, I'm taking my strides as far as I can and helping wherever I can, but like I'm like, yeah, we're in end game. End game.
Yeah, I mean, as of this taping, it seems like Jimmy Kimmel has won. You know, he came out on top in all this. He got reinstated. He's back. Now, as of this taping, again, we're taping this on, Thursday the 25th. There's still some kind of uncertainty with how it's all going to land, with how many of these affiliates around the country are actually going to air Jimmy Kimmel Live every week. As I went into in Monday's video, the way ABC broadcasts its all of its programming is across local affiliates. So whatever city or town you live in, there's like a local affiliate. About Disney and ABC outright own 8 of them in the largest media markets around the country. But then another 24 of them or so are owned by a company called Nexstar Media. And then even more than that are owned by an even bigger conservative leading company called Sinclair Media. And both Nexstar and Sinclair have said, we're not going to show Jimmy Kimmel Live. But they've also, in the fallout of all this drama, have kind of like indicated that based off of ongoing conversations they're having with Disney and representatives of Disney, that they may be okay walking that back if Jimmy Kimmel's okay with agreeing to certain things. And if you watch Jimmy Kimmel's monologue on Tuesday, which was like a week ago for those of you watching this, he did seem to kind of take a different tone, and he did acknowledge that maybe his comments were a bit ill-timed, or that they were definitely misinterpreted, and he didn't want that. And I really thought his monologue was really, really well written, well delivered, and I thought he definitely struck the right tone. Depending on what your beliefs are, maybe you felt like he shouldn't have apologized or even appeared to apologize for anything. Maybe you thought he should have apologized more. That's not what we're going to get into here. What we're going to get into in this show is like the way Disney handled this and the way the entertainment media ecosystem is talking about it and what that really means for the future of Marvel Studios, because that has never been more up in the air than it is right now this week. You ready for the first rumor?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Ooh, okay. This is coming from Wow. No bit here. I don't want people to be like, I don't like that joke. Okay, here's the rumor. Disney's handling of the Jimmy Kimmel controversy has shaken up the company's leadership succession plans, which might cause issues for the future Marvel Studios X-Men film in the Mutant Saga. This rumor is really being put out there by Matt Bellany of the Town podcasts and his various very informed co-hosts of Lucas Shaw, Bill Carter, and Eric Gardner, and other people he's had on the show in the past week. I got to give a shout out to Matt Bellany. I think he is really an excellent reporter who's been covering this for decades. I mean, I've learned so much just from listening to his podcast at the Town. You have met Matt, I believe, right?
Yes, and I don't want to talk more about it only because I go into a lot of situations not knowing who people are.
But that's okay.
I also just only hear your voice.
Yeah, Matt Bellany, yes, he's been on screen for things, but he's mostly known as like a podcaster and a writer. Yeah. You know, you don't have to be able to recognize everyone. Well, Matt, I don't know if you listen to the show, but we like your work and we appreciate all your coverage of the Jimmy Kimmel stuff because I think he's done a pretty good job covering it. He's been the one entertainment reporter to have any kind of insight into what has really been the conversation among the players with this Jimmy Kimmel drama. So basically, to give you some details of what he's been saying across a lot of these podcasts, Matthew Bellany has said in the Town podcast some inside scoops about Dana Walden, who's the boss at Disney in charge of ABC programming, Bob Iger, the chairman, the CEO of Disney, and Jimmy Kimmel. And when Kimmel was suspended on September 17th, it was after ABC Disney waited really an extra day after he made his monologue on the night of Monday, September 15th. And in that extra day, it really gave some extra time for all the right-wing media outlets and the FCC and all the affiliates to kind of speak their part on this, and for Kimmel to really get defensive in reaction to all of that before the Disney execs could kind of handle it internally. So when Dana Walden asked Jimmy Kimmel to revise his planned monologue for Wednesday, Kimmel refused. According to Matt Bellany, it was a monologue where he was going to go after all these right-wing media outlets who were putting words in his mouth and taking what he said out of context. He was going to go after the FCC, and Dana Walden felt that that would have made things worse. So when these affiliate groups like Nexstar and Sinclair all said that they weren't going to show Kimmel that night, Disney just felt they had to suspend Kimmel to avoid making things even worse. But then, of course, as I went into in the video on Monday, that backfired both on Disney and on the FCC. And now Disney, as of the 25th, is kind of in this staring contest with Nexstar and Sinclair. I do think over time, at least Nexstar might be considering to put Jimmy back on the air once this all cools down. But the fact that this got all these negative headlines for Disney just ultimately looks bad for Dana Walden. And what Matt Bellany has been saying is that Dana Walden has been rumored to be the heir apparent to take over for Bob Iger after Bob Iger's contract ends. So even though this may not be all Dana Walden's fault, if she's the boss of ABC and if this has just looked really bad for all the Disney execs for not stepping in sooner to talk to Jimmy Kimmel and to try to let cooler heads prevail, and instead it let it blow up in the media and with the FCC to feel pressured to answer these questions. Feel pressured. Really, I should be honest. Brandon Carr didn't have to even say remotely what he said to Benny Johnson's show, but he was answering a question that Benny Johnson set him up to say that. If ABC could have handled this before Brandon Carr taped that recording, maybe this wouldn't have blown up as much. And you can imagine there's people internally at Disney who maybe are saying that right now. Like, yeah, you should have seen it. You should have been watching what Jimmy Kimmel said and been paying more attention to this sooner. So that's kind of like the succession drama, like who knows how they're going to react to this, or if now they might be looking for someone else who's kind of a rising star at Disney to take over after Bob Iger. But what I am now asking is, if Marvel's now looking past Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, and they have a script for Marvel Studios X-Men. We know that's going to be the next big movie, and arguably that might be more important to the future of Marvel Studios than what's happening at Doomsday and Secret Wars. We kind of understand what those are going to be. The X-Men, the Mutant Saga is the future of this franchise. In order to do a proper Mutant Saga, you have to be somewhat politically charged. The X-Men 2000 opened with Robert Kelly on the floor of the Senate talking about, kind of making some... This is all before 9/11, but it seems to be pretty political. And then in 2003, this is the first X-Men movie after 9/11, and what do we see? We see an attempted assassination in the White House Oval Office. Then we see Brian Cox as Colonel Stryker saying we need to send commandos into a school and arrest these children. And there was in the trailer for the movie, it wasn't just like once you got in the movie theater, in the marketing for the film, you see the actor playing Robert Kelly holding up surveillance drone photos saying this facility is a school. I remember that being in the marketing for the film. And I remember it because it was ripped from the headlines of all the debates that were happening in Washington at the time, of Colin Powell saying that, Saddam Hussein had these weapons of mass destruction facilities, and other people are saying these aren't terrorist facilities, these are schools. And just that whole debate that we were seeing on the West Wing and we were seeing on the nightly news was now in a Marvel movie. And that was during the war on terror. That's when a lot of people were afraid of how the Bush administration was going to be attacking Hollywood. And ultimately, it never went that far. Yeah. And Hollywood felt emboldened enough to allow that to be in Marvel movies. The Marvel Studios in 2028 or whatever, is that Mutant Saga film, does it even have a chance of getting at least that political?
I don't think so. And I mean, I've spoken about this before on Sneak Peek too, about how this is my one kind of fear.
Yeah.
The situation was, even joking and saying it was a simpler time during those times. There's some merit to those simpler times because we condoned and tolerated a lot more as a human nation in America, especially. Mm-hmm. And so the idea that everyone has found their own individualism and started asking why has now caused just the divisive part of America that we live in today. Mm-hmm. And the fact is, I think when it comes to big corporations like Disney or anything bigger, they're more afraid of the masses than the one person. It's more about, even if they have a belief that you disagree with, it's more about their money at the end of the day, and you are putting the money into their pockets. It's not the one person that's causing this. So in this case, it's not Donald Trump that they're afraid of, it's the masses that can come after them. And I think Disney is still afraid of that, especially with something as like X-Men. Jimmy Kimmel has been on the air for 20-something years. He's a big, big name. X-Men is not Jimmy Kimmel. X-Men, they can still control, and they can still put their hand in it and be like, we don't want to push any different narratives. I remember Bob Iger saying we need to go away from what writers are trying to tell them in stories or trying to put narratives into stories. And I think that's what they're going to try doing in 2028 or in 2027 when they start releasing more X-Men things. It sucks that they can't even have any mirror to what the symbolism of X-Men originally was. I want that. I think a lot of minorities do want that. But until, which I don't know, it's hard to even say this, until we're united again as a nation, and even if we're saying, we're fighting the people outside this country, they're not going to allow it. They're not going to allow it. It's a sad burden, but it's just, as long as money is coming out of people that are very loud, they're not going to do it.
My fear is what you were kind of describing, Jess, is Bob Iger made these comments in November 2023. CNBC reported it, that he said this to a group of investors or whatever, that I'm paraphrasing what he said. In the past few years, during the Chapek era, Disney became more prioritized on messages than entertainment. That's the way he described it. And he did point out things like Black Panther, where you can have a really entertaining movie that still has a good message. Obviously, that's the North Star ideal. You want to have movies that are both entertaining and have a good message, and even a provoking message at times, which Black Panther did. But in his view, if the movie puts the message before the entertainment, that's the problem. Now, we reacted to that saying, well, what are you really saying here? What message are you communicating there? That you're only going to start funding things that you don't even need a message in it? I think every good movie should have a message. Even Indiana Jones, as Indiana Jones, he's punching Nazis in that movie, and I don't even think you could make that now. I mean, I guess what Dial of Destiny to begin with him punching a bunch of Nazis on a train, but I feel like even since Dial of Destiny, you can't have a character punch a Nazi.
No.
And that's just crazy to even say that these things are now, that the goalposts have moved to where these things are considered controversial. And it's just so stupid. So I think that's my worry with Marvel Studios X-Men, is that what Bob Iger really wants out of it, and maybe what some people underneath him, I don't know how Kevin Feige really feels. I don't know what's in any of these guys' hearts and minds. I only know what they've said. I think they want Marvel Hogwarts. They don't want something that's on the streets. of mutants being locked up by the Friends of Humanity, chased by Sentinels and put in cages. What they want is a wish fulfillment story of a kid who wakes up with a mutant power one day, and what if he gets whisked away to a magical school with other mutant kids, and they learn how to use their powers, and then they work together to solve something, and they work with the adults, and they fight some kind of generic, watered down battle. And it's more about the magical school that you go to. So I call it Marvel Hogwarts. And I think that's what they want, because they can build that school at Disney and they can sell whatever their version of the wizard wand is. And that's what they want, because they think it's more profitable. But that's not what X-Men is at the end of the day.
But that's the thing, is just like how, again, being more afraid of a small community of people or of all people. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not, that's the thing, is like, we're still... this is so hard. It's not that we tolerate it, but I think to a degree we will still watch it. If you are left-leaning or liberal or whatever, you will still continue to watch it, and we will just talk about it to ourselves. But there's other people on the other side, or just a discourse where if something negative like this happens to media, they will keep going, and it will keep rising, and they will bomb the reviews, they will bomb everything, and it will just continuously get worse. And I think that's what fears them more than us having to be like, I want my X-Men back. Like, the minority of us that want the symbolism of what X-Men was is not as disastrous as the amount of people that are going to start a riot over what we wanted, if that makes sense. If we see queer storylines in X-Men, they will riot.
And
they
it's
will
just
riot because it's on
insane.
Disney. It's a Disney program on a Disney channel.
I know.
And we had Snoop Dogg 2 weeks ago being like, I can't do this. And people said, yeah, you know, he's right. Why are we putting it in our children's media? No one ever thought, why can't you just talk?
And it's just so crazy to rewatch 2003's X2 X-Men United. And it's a movie that features Brian Cox, Colonel Stryker, invading the school, shooting kids with tranq darts, locking them in a cage for most of the movie. It's in a school. You have basically men with like tranq guns going into a school at night and grabbing kids and dragging them away.
We tolerated more.
We were
though.
okay. We could draw that line between understand and also draw the line and be able to see across that line and see how it does affect and comment on real world events. And no one protested X2. We could understand that art is meant to do this, that it is meant to reflect the real world, and we can draw our own conclusions from it. And no one said that, oh, this Fox movie that's coming out is corrupting, it's propaganda for our children's minds, it's injecting politics where it doesn't belong. No, at the time we all said this is what X-Men is. X-Men is a story about where mutants are on the run. And like that movie, the most daring thing it did at the time was it had Shawn Ashmore as Bobby Drake coming out to his parents. And that, I think everyone celebrated the fact that it did that. And this was in 2003 when like America was still bitterly divided over gay rights and gay marriage.
But that's the thing, it wasn't as bad as it is today.
Things are just so polarized now.
Well, it's so polarized, but it's also, again, we found individualism. I think it was like what we thought was just so small and it was just natural and we kind of deal with it. There's a shift in demographic, shift in just, media literacy, but also just how just as we evolve as humans. The generation that was then in 2003 are not the ones in power today in 2025. And I think people, as we also figure out that individualism and how we are in the world and how we could actually put our foot down, started making people scared. And out of confusion comes fear. And then out of fear and confusion, we always regress. That's just how humans do. We go back and look at a time where we didn't have these problems, but that's also selective memory, where we're looking back at times where like, oh, this was a better time, but you're not thinking about all the bad times that happened. Especially in 2003, 2004, we weren't really talking about Black Lives Matter. We weren't talking about these issues because it didn't seem like it was that big of an issue at the time. But now we recognize how big of an issue it is today. And that's what makes things too divisive. I think it's also a matter of the fact of like, these issues that weren't as big in 2003 to 2009 are so big today is because so many people talk about it. And they make a conversation about it and everyone goes, yeah, that sounds right. But when you don't get a voice in that conversation, you feel like you're being attacked. And so that's why we're always going to have this divide. We're always going to have this divide. I hate being a pessimist about it because I want to believe that there's a time we can unite again and maybe go backwards, maybe somehow. But until we get like a Watchmen level threat that literally forces America to unite, it's going to take so much for us to do it in media for it to be okay. Like Jimmy Kimmel, again, 26 years or 20 something years. That's a big titan. X-Men isn't as big as Jimmy Kimmel for them. Like Jimmy Kimmel started everyone marching. I don't think a lot of people are going to march for X-Men.
I think it will be different the way it goes down. And a big reason why it will be different is what caused the Jimmy Kimmel eruption, we can call it, is the affiliates.
Yeah.
When it comes to Marvel Studios, they don't have to worry about affiliates. Their distribution network is theater chains. It's AMC, it's Cinemark, it's Regal, it's Odeon, it's Alamo, and these types of theater companies don't have the kind of political leanings that Sinclair and Nexstar do, and the FCC regulates them differently. It's like the FCC specifically, it's the broadcasting licenses that are specific to ABC, NBC, CBS, and you don't have something quite like that, but you do have the MPAA, and the MPAA can do all kinds of things when it comes to censorship. They can change their guidelines. It's just a lot harder. You can't move things that quickly. And so I don't know if we have to risk it, but there is a real thing of a chilling effect. A real chilling effect that can affect the culture by Bob Iger saying things like, we don't want messages as much as we want entertainment. I'm kind of pessimistic about this too, Jess. And I am worried that we're going to get a watered down Mutant Saga. But let's just acknowledge at least that at the end of the day, Bob Iger did stand behind Jimmy Kimmel. They did reinstate him, even when it's still pretty hot right now. And you do have the president who's assailing ABC over this and making other threats about it. So it was, at the end of the day, it was a brave thing to do to reinstate him. They didn't have to do that. I'm not giving them all the laurels because they didn't handle this great.
And I don't think that's bad at all. I again, though, that's the problem is like, it's Jimmy Kimmel. That's a titan.
Yeah.
That's a titan. Conan's not even on the air anymore. I think
I know.
Jimmy Kimmel.
And then
Jimmy Fallon just sits to the side.
Right.
But
and then Colbert still will be off the air in a year.
So I'm like, those are titans. Like I hate calling them titans, but it's that guy has been in his career since I've been alive. Like before this, he was still an actor on TV. And so that's why I'm like, yeah, you kind of have to move weight for that. And also, again, he didn't do anything that bad.
He really didn't do anything that bad. And there was a huge labor union pressure campaign. Yeah. There was campaigns from everyone. There was 400 actors and directors signed a letter. You know.
It's and that's the thing is like being the pessimist I am, it's like it's so much simpler for them to just take that part of the script out.
Yeah.
Of X-Men.
So the question I think we're now asking is, this is still Kevin Feige's plan, right? He wants to do the Mutant Saga. He wants to do Marvel Studios X-Men, and he was there in 2000 and in 2003 as an associate producer on these titles. He takes a lot of pride over his involvement with those movies, and I think it's always been home for him. Where is he going to go on this? Because he ultimately is the person whose name is on Captain America Brave New World, which watered down any kind of political message that movie was going to have into a leader Red Hulk conflict. Does he want to do Marvel Hogwarts, or does he want to do Sentinels chasing mutant kids through the streets?
Well, that's also the situation. We're using examples that are very extreme that we want them to address. I think Feige would be, and this is just me talking as like a Hollywood PR person, Feige would find bridges that aren't as so extreme, if that makes sense. Putting kids in cages, maybe not. Abusive parents, 100%.
I think he should show the Friends of Humanity putting kids in cages.
I think he should. I don't think he will. Because it's just...
To me, that's not X-Men.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I wanted every other part, the social part that X-Men was supposed to. That's why Black people, we love X-Men. I mean, other than like it being badass, but like, yeah, it's like, this is what we love about it. But I think while it's just like money will constantly make this wheel keep turning, and just fear of just things just exploding and just getting too disastrous. Again, you don't want to piss off the masses. But I could see Feige being like, because we have it a lot in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like family abuse, domestic abuse. Those are quarrels that they're willing to touch in Disney, which is insane to think about, that they're probably up there going, well, that's too far. Children in cages. That's too far. Putting tags on everyone and figuring out where they go. But then to go, domestic abuse can work. We can put that in there. That's okay. I think those are the stories we're going to lean towards. They won't even touch like an age gap between Magneto and Rogue. Like, they're not gonna do that. They're like, ooh, let's not talk about that.
I think that it is important for people like Kevin Feige and James Gunn, and then their bosses of David Zaslav and Bob Iger, to use the platforms they have in their media. I don't think it's too woke to show a sentinel chasing down a mutant kid. I think the fact that some people online might think that is just insane, and we need to ignore that and just tell the stories that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby established, which was the story of the X-Men is a story about racial discrimination. And we should be having these kind of debates in the dialogue of the films. And if we weren't afraid to do it in 2003, we shouldn't be afraid to do it in 2028. And even though people online make us afraid to have those conversations, I think we need to just let them whine and complain. And if they don't want to see the movies, fine. But if it's a good movie, enough people will see it.
They're cowards.
I think you're right. I do think you're right.
They're cowards. And the thing is, a child getting chased by a sentinel, they can do. It just can't be multiple sentinels, and they're clearly like an army.
Well, I mean, don't be stupid about it. Don't put the sentinel in a red hat. Yeah. Because then what are you really saying? Then that's just kind of like you trying to be performative about it. But I think a sentinel that looks like a sentinel that is controlled by a Senator Kelly or a White House, that might sound like people on either side of the political spectrum. Let's be honest, because, Obama signed a lot of those forms to use drone strikes. I'm not saying to make it too coded the way that maybe The Boys does, but there is a way that you can acknowledge the existence of political discourse in this country in these Disney movies.
And I think to that degree they can and they will. They'll just find a way to interpret it that it is surface level.
Yeah.
That it is surface enough level that it is the most racy thing that Disney can do, if that makes sense. I feel like if James Gunn or even The Boys touch things, they'll go full on in. They don't give a but the limit to which Disney is willing to do is what they're going is surface. And I think kind of like Jimmy Kimmel's speech, if it spoke to you on this side or it spoke to you on that side, he's speeching. He's saying what he's saying. And when I say that, I mean, like, I prefer something more deeper than the surface of that. Of course, I'm a black woman in America, but for a lot of people, that's maybe enough.
I think my cynical brain says what we'll see whenever Jake Schreier's X-Men movie comes out, it will be Marvel Hogwarts. It'll be like a kid-friendly movie of mutants discovering their powers, whatever. And there will be some vague messaging in it, but it'll mostly be Marvel Hogwarts. We'll establish the X-Mansion. It'll be a location you can visit in Disneyland. And then in the 2030s, you'll start to see some other more politically charged stories.
I hope it comes in 2030.
And I think what Disney's hoping is that America has moved on to other things. I'm not saying it's all going to be fixed. In many ways, it'll probably be better. But at least we'll move away from like expecting the media to not to stay in its lane, the way we're at right now.
Yeah. I hope that like next term there's a lot of stuff we got to go back and like fix in order for media to even have like a say, or not say, but like have to get involved like this degree. But 2030s, I would hope. I would hope. It's hard when you're seeing like no light at the end of the tunnel and you're just like, it feels like we're doing Idiocracy where we're just going deeper and deeper and deeper. But most humanity always works in like a U. We always revert. We always come back. Maybe we're at the U part of the U where it feels like it's the worst. We'll bounce back.
I know it seems like 2030. What a concept. Are we even as a species going to make it to that year? But we are closer. Maybe I'm wrong about this. I think we're now closer to 2030 than we were to the COVID outbreak in February of 2020.
Well, yeah, it's 2020.
Late 2025.
2020 March. 2020 started.
It's about to be 2026.
Yeah.
So think of it that way.
Which we just got. It's so funny to talk about this discussion. We should have been like, what can X-Men do within the sandbox they're given? Instead of, are they gonna get the ability to do everything? Because I don't think they are. You also, with Disney, only I know this because of Atlanta, you got to Trojan horse that shit in. Same with Agatha and WandaVision. Then they have to like hide a lot of things like in order for it to go through under Trojan horse. You just like sneak it in there You don't tell the studio you're doing it until the time comes. They did it on the Boondocks a lot. Of course they had to do it on
They do it on South Park every week.
They do it on South Park.
Yeah.
On the Boondocks, my favorite one is they made a very racy Tyler Perry episode, and they named him Tyler Perry. And the studio, they were like, no, you cannot call him Tyler Perry. So then they gave them Tyler Perry's real name, and it went under the table, and no one knew. And then right before they were about to air, they were like, we figured out what you were doing. That's Tyler Perry's real name. And they were like, damn it. And they had to change the name. But we all got the gist of what the episode was. But it was just like, that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do sometimes. And hey, if you do it here with X-Men, do it like with just really quickly. Just slide it in with someone.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think so many eyes are on these Marvel movies. I don't know if they can do. They have too many cooks in the kitchen of those Marvel movies.
Yeah, they do.
Like James Gunn, I think, can even get away. James Gunn really can, because it is all just him a lot of times. And he's a writer, he's a director, and he's a studio head. So it's just, if Peter Safran's okay with it, and if David Zaslav is busy with something else,
they just put it in.
It's in the movie.
They just put it in.
He shoots it. You have to move fast in order to do that. That's why South Park can do it.
Yeah, with the Boondocks, they were like, like put it out there real quick, and then as soon as that animatic came back, they said, wait a minute. Now you got to re-record this stupid dub.
I'm optimistic that, like, well, here's the reality. We're in a late stage capitalist economy. Yeah. Whatever is the most profitable route is where they will go. Wherever the most profit is, that's where they'll go.
And that's what I genuinely am saying. Like, they want money in those parks. They want money on that screen. And look, they're going to get it one way or another.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. Let's grade this as a scoop or a poop. I think, Matt, if it's coming from Bellany, it's a scoop.
It's scoop.
It's a scoop. Good job, Matt. Let's leave it there for this episode of the Rumor Rundown. Be sure to subscribe to this show. You can listen to it as an audio podcast if you're watching us on YouTube. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to The Witching Hour. Tomorrow, you'll be able to see Jessica's video essay about Jennifer's body. You're going to love it. Subscribe to The Witching Hour. Subscribe to everywhere New Rockstars is. You can follow Jessica at Lulu_Clements. Follow me at EA Voss. Thanks to Brian Kim for editing this episode.
Thank you, baby.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.